The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Well, we've got a big show on tap. Olie Lane, former Tennessee offensive lineman, will join us. We'll talk about Tennessee's offensive tackles. Have they gotten better or just played lesser competition? Also on the program today, we will discuss why the NCAA wanted to not only hurt Nico Iamaleava's college career, they wanted to stop it before it even started, Caleb. Also, will cold weather be a factor for the Vols and Nico? He's a California quarterback, so we'll get into that. I know he's kind of played it off a little bit, so nobody brings it up except for you guys. Well, we're here now. So, Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm well. So we've got a lot to get to. Let's go ahead and start with What the H, and it's brought to you by our good buddy. Sorry, the intro's still playing. By our good buddy, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right. We have learned that with this program, you could probably do any topic on Nico, and it's going to get a lot of views. We're not doing that just for the sake of getting more views. What we want to do now is look at a situation where I think the NCAA just illustrated how incredibly out of touch it was, Caleb, as they were prepared to sit Nico down for something that was not even determined a violation once Tennessee's and Virginia's court case was settled. That's how far they were from understanding what is even going on with this thing.
Yeah, so apparently this thing went way back because the NCAA reportedly has been trying to shut down Spire Sports. And so Tennessee knew the NCAA was coming after it before Iamaleava even began his true freshman season in 2023. They had set their sights on the relationship between Spire Sports and the between Iamaleava and Spire Sports, which for those who don't remember, that's the Tennessee affiliated NIL collective. And Nico Iamaleava was really their, as CBS Sports reports, their crown jewel was what they said of the agency. And this came and on the heels of the failed Jaden Rashada deal, the NCAA decided to go after Tennessee and Florida State. They expected, according to this report, that Tennessee was going to cooperate easily because they had just gotten off of the previous scandal that Jeremy Pruitt oversaw. And so they expected that a wounded Tennessee was going to cooperate. And according to this report, they tried, and their initial plan to flex their muscles was to rule Iamaleava ineligible and force Tennessee to disassociate itself with Spire Sports, according to Tom Mars, who represents Spire Sports. And this was a way for them to try kind of it confirms kind of what we thought at the time, which was that the NCAA wanted to flex their muscles, but it also took it a step further in the sense of they wanted to go so far as to say that this year, with all the hype behind Iamaleava, the NCAA was going to step in and say he can't play this year.
Yeah, this sounds like an all or nothing situation. You remember we kind of got a bit startled when the state of Tennessee and Virginia decided to enter against this lawsuit against the NCAA. Why they just hopped up and did it real quick in a couple of days, Caleb. But I think this is the reason. I think that they went to Tennessee and they said, our goal here is for you to eventually have to disassociate yourself with Nico Iamaleava. And they weren't going to go for that. So that's why they had to go all in and file the lawsuit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think and maybe I don't know what your thoughts, but obviously the state filed the lawsuit, but my guess is the university was already working with state officials and had this ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
They were prepared for this to happen. But the crazy part is that I'm not trying to, like morally grandstand or anything, but it's very clear that the NCAA had no qualms about putting a young freshman putting his career on hold and jeopardizing his career to flex their own muscles against the school.
That's just emblematic of what they've been their entire existence.
Yeah.
It's to hurt amateur athletes, excuse me, as I have the hiccups. It's to hurt amateur athletes and line their own pockets. That's their goal. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you agree. Also, our poll question, Caleb, is?
Our poll question is pulling it up now. Sorry, guys, a little bit slow on the uptake. I gotta get better at this. Is this all you hope for in a CFP?
Yes. And I say it is, because you've got snow falling in Notre Dame. You've got a fantastic matchup in Tennessee and Ohio State that you're not capped on Saturday night. Let's face it, we could go back and we could say Alabama should be in there with this team or that team or this team or that. And we could go back but when it's all said and done, as a guy who has dreamed of this to come along for my entire fandom of college football, which would be 30 years or 40 years, I'm sorry, it's finally here. So your thoughts on, is this all you could have hoped for in a college football playoff? Does it feel like a realization of something?
Well, I was the Grinch yesterday when you were out, Dave, and I talked about how if you look at the ticket prices, I think the NCAA was short-sighted because the ticket prices are plummeting for 3 of the 4 college football playoff games. Because what they didn't take into account is, yes, it may be all people hope for in terms of viewership and watching at home, but nobody really wants to go to these games. And
well, it's gonna have a Super Bowl feel before long. I covered one Super Bowl, and the auxiliary seating was in the stands, so you sat essentially in the stands with your press box seating, but it was so antiseptic, I guess is the word. It was all corporate guys. There was no cheering. I don't think I saw one pair of hands clapped. So I think that's what the college football playoff is going to feel like eventually, because you also have all of these individual these individual schools that are looking for their best option as well. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Today's tough question. What the H? They tried to get Nico suspended for the season. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. Listen, Josh Heupel's done a lot of things besides recruit Nico Iamaleava to Tennessee, and he's done a lot of them at a high level. But still, if not for Nico, where is his program and what he brings to not only as a player, but as a tangible recruiting asset? And I can't help but think, Caleb, that Josh Heupel's career is going to go as Nico's goes as well. So you're talking about a point in time where the NCAA wanted to end that relationship before it even started.
Oh, yes. Josh Heupel went for Nico the way, Dave, you've covered NFL teams and franchises, and sometimes coaches, you know this, there will be coaches who are effectively the GMs, and they will leverage their entire future taking over a franchise on one quarterback that they want in the draft. And it's like, you can do that, but your future is inextricably tied to that quarterback at that point. I believe, and maybe you could tell me, but Andy Reid did that with Donovan McNabb, right? He took a risk on Donovan McNabb, and
a little bit ahead of my time. I mean, I remember him, but I don't remember the specifics of where he was drafted. No, but Donovan McNabb was a very good player. And so I would think I don't even remember where he got drafted, Caleb.
It was like 17th, and Eagles fans in typical Eagles fashion didn't want him, so they booed. But the reason I bring that up is like, yeah, Josh Heupel's inextricably tied his future to Nico Iamaleava. And I think that he still believes in him. We all still believe in him. It took him a little bit longer to get going than we thought, but he's playing well now. I just think that when you really break this down, and someone asked the question on the message board, why did they go after Florida, Florida State, and Tennessee specifically? Well, I'll give you the reasons they went after all 3 of them. One, Florida embarrassed themselves because they lied about an NIL collective they had and were promising NIL money they couldn't pay out on the recruiting trail. So they were an easy target. Florida State, I think Florida State was an easy target because Florida State was trying to get out of the ACC. They were doing their best to cause some chaos in college football. And honestly, the NCAA went harder after them after the Sugar Bowl last year, where Florida State showed up all of college football by not having any of their players show up for the Sugar Bowl and just losing that game on purpose because they were mad about being left out of the playoff. And they went after Tennessee because Tennessee was a wounded dog, and the NCAA needed to flex their muscle somehow, and they smelled blood when they saw Tennessee. And so that's the reason they went after all three. Now, you bring up something. You talked about lining their own pockets, Dave. 3 days ago, we talked about Brian Kelly matching NIL funds. I'm sure you heard yesterday about Alabama Athletic Director Greg Byrne sending out a message asking fans for money. Did you see that?
Yes.
Here's where I think people are worried about the chaos that this is creating. This is all going to work itself out. You want to know the logical end of all this? The only answer? Eventually, the money, the administrators and the power people, from the athletic directors to the commissioners, are just going to, within 20 years, are just going to have to be accepting that they're going to make less money. They're fighting tooth and nail to avoid that. But the truth is, there's a finite amount of money going around, and they collected all of that money in the past. But now the players are getting some of that pie. So they're trying to supplement the players getting that pie by asking for the donations. That's not going to make up for the amount of money the players are commanding. Eventually, this is just going to end with the administrators, the useless administrators, not stealing millions of dollars the way they have been.
So you're not talking about coaches. You're talking about all the associate ADs that run around on campuses.
Associate ADs, yeah, associate commissioners. I mean, there's the conference commissioners, but how many people below the conference commissioners are there that probably just collect checks, that sit in a board and do nothing?
Oh, at each school?
No, I mean at each conference.
Oh,
like how many people are sitting? How many people are in the SEC? Probably have offices where they collect like $500,000 to just do nothing but send 2 emails a day.
Probably 3 or 4. Probably a good number of those guys. Probably a good number of those guys. But that's what Dave Hart was hired for when he came to Tennessee, and he cleaned everybody out. He just didn't understand the lady ball thing. So I think they're in much better shape than they are right now. Today's tough question is now, and it's brought to you by our good friend Medicare Misty.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Are Tennessee's coaches worried about Nico in a potential cold weather game? What do you say, Caleb Calhoun? I'll put that as a poll question.
No, I actually don't think they are, believe it or not. I think that having covered enough NFL football, this is kind of the first that we're ever seeing this in college football, right? Where cold weather as a factor in a game. Like, this is the first time we're really seeing it in college, isn't it?
Yeah, most of the time you see weather be a factor early on in the season with lightning plays. Yeah,
exactly. So if you compare Nico to Will Howard, yes, Will Howard is from Westchester, Pennsylvania, which is that I believe is in eastern Pennsylvania, right outside of Philly, close to Delaware, the Pennsylvania-Delaware border. He's definitely much more used to the cold being from there than Nico Iamaleava would be coming from Southern California. But I do think, one, Nico Iamaleava has been in Knoxville now for a year, 2 years. It gets cold in Knoxville, guys.
True.
Or it's not that different from Columbus. And I don't think just being from an area related to the cold makes you a bad fit for the cold weather. Brett Favre is from Mississippi. Whatever you think about him as a person, and I think very low of him as a person, Brett Favre was awesome in the cold weather in Green Bay. Like, he lived for the cold weather in Green Bay, even though he was from Mississippi. Well,
I think there's something to be said, though, about the California cool quarterbacks that you want to be. You're concerned about every time a player goes into a new environment. So you'd be concerned. It would be silly not to be concerned.
Yeah, but the thing is, I would, maybe they're concerned, but how would they be any more concerned than Ohio? I mean, I know Will Howard's from Westchester, so he's more proven in the cold. Fair enough. But how would they be more concerned than Ohio State is with, I don't know, their receivers or anybody else? Nobody's played in this type of weather in college football on either team. And I mean, this is where, like, it always bothered me when the Big Ten's like, why would you guys come play in the cold weather? I'm like, one, you guys play once November hits, you play all your games at noon during the warmest part of the day. And November's not December. The Big Ten schools have never played in cold weather games either. So this is just such a ridiculous notion. And honestly, and Dave, maybe you know more about this than I do, but arm strength, quarterbacks with strong arms benefit more from the cold weather, don't they? Isn't it arm strength that helps you overcome the cold. Like like an accurate quarterback struggles more. Like a Peyton Manning, for instance, didn't have arm strength, didn't have a cannon for an arm, but
I really thought that whole Peyton Manning didn't have a strong arm narrative was way overdone.
Well, okay, he had a strong enough arm for the NFL, but did you think he had was he ever in the top tier of arm strength in the NFL?
Yeah, I thought he was first in the NFL his first few years. Yeah, I would have had him.
Really?
Top 25%.
Interesting. Okay.
That's not I mean, I thought he had a bazooka on him, to be real honest with you.
Okay, well, maybe also the narrative of Peyton in the cold was overblown to a lot of people. I mean, he did go to Denver and balled out for a couple of years. Yeah. So, and Tom Brady doesn't have a strong arm and was fine in New England. I mean, I think it's more. I don't know what the factors are for a quarterback playing poorly or great in the cold, because Aaron Rodgers, for instance, struggles in the cold. It's funny, he played in Green Bay his whole career, but he was really bad in cold weather. Mm-hmm. And is part of it toughness, just how easily you're able to get up after you get hit, and how
part of it is toughness, which I want to get to. What the H brought to you by Medicare, Misty.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Caleb, I thought that some fans didn't like Casey Clausen for his California cool type of quarterback feel. And I think that there's a potential for some fans not to like that about Nico, even though I think it's misread. I think he is intense. I think he does care a lot. But I think it's going to be read as kind of the California cool by some people, which is fine. His teammates know who he is. And Caleb, this team, though, aside from Nico being a redshirt freshman, is built to win this type of game. If you look at where they are on the defensive line, where they are running the football, this is the type of game on the road, bad weather, that you should be built to win.
I totally agree. I think they're more built to win it than Ohio State is, if I'm being honest with you. And I think that could really reveal itself on Saturday. I think just funny enough, the thing with Casey that's different from Nico is Casey had the California coolness, but at the same time, he kind of had a little bit of the hot-headedness because he would make some comments every now and then. I think that's what rubbed people the wrong way, was that he would make a comment that might strike you as arrogant. Like, remember the Georgia game that he missed in 2002 when he comes out, he's like, if I had played, we would have won by 2 touchdowns. And so things like that. But then he would say that, but then he would just be like, he would give off the vibe of no big deal when he messed up when playing, even though that's not how he felt. Nico is never going to be the guy that says, if I was playing, we would have won by 2 touchdowns. That's never going to be Nico Iamaleava his entire time at Tennessee. So I think it is a little bit different, but I think more than anything, I think the people around Nico are, like you said, they are probably more built for this weather. I mean, look, Cooper Mace has been playing in Knoxville his whole life. Which is close to Columbus in cold weather. Cooper Mace played a lot of high school ball in November and probably in early December. You don't think he's going to be able to handle this cold weather? I think he'll be fine. And so, I mean, and Javonte Spraggins, we didn't even talk about this. Their starting right guard, Javonte Spraggins, he's from East St. Louis. He's from Illinois. So, I mean, the idea that, coming from East St. Louis, he's probably used to the cold weather up there. And so I'm just not buying this. I think Tennessee has a lot of advantages with a lot of players on their depth chart who come from colder environments that I think they should be able to handle. I don't really see – I mean, maybe I'm delusional, Dave, but do you see a real distinct advantage for Ohio State in this weather over Tennessee?
Just as it references the weather?
Yeah, as reference to the weather.
No, other than the quarterback, just because of the unknown. I don't know yet how Nico is going to respond. Have we ever seen Will Howard in the cold?
I mean, he did play at Kansas State, so I'm sure he played some in the cold. And he's, again, like I said, he's from Westchester. So, I mean, to be fair to him on that, I will say that he's probably more proven in the cold. But, Tennessee's go-to receiver is Dante Thornton. He's from Baltimore. He's used to the cold. So, I mean, there's just it's hard to look at this and say that, there's going to be some issues with Tennessee. And I'm going down Tennessee's roster right now. They got enough people from cold weather who are reliable people who should matter in this game, that they should have an advantage. They should be fine. I don't see any reason they won't be able to play.
No, I think in football, doesn't it have to be like 85 degrees or like 10 degrees for weather to really have an impact? Does it really? Is there much of a difference between 30 and 40 or 20 and 40?
I never thought so. I felt the same way. Now, maybe when you throw in the weather, but it could be a difference, but I don't think there's going to be much weather in this game. So I don't think there's much of a difference. And also, I mean, look, I'm not trying to, this is going to sound SEC homerish, but I think playing in the South in September is much more of a daunting task than playing in the North in December. Only because, and I think you would agree with me on this, Dave, you're a workout guy. It doesn't matter how cold it is. Once you really get your heart rate and blood flow and working out, you kind of forget about the weather, don't you?
Yeah. And you have to get moving around a little bit. You'll feel much better. I don't think the offensive linemen aren't going to be cold past the first snap of the game.
No, not at all.
So what I've heard 19 as the predicted temperature. Is that what you're hearing? And
I've heard 19 too. Columbus weather is 28's the high tomorrow. It's going to get as low as 16, but it'll be like 24 when kickoff happens, and it'll probably stay 24 throughout the game tomorrow, which is kind of an interesting one. The funny thing is, we have to ask this question: is this going to affect the fans there? I mean, we keep hearing about how the SEC is not ready for the cold, but I just told you guys, Big Ten fans have never really dealt with this cold weather. I don't think fans in Columbus are used to going to a game in December in cold weather. And so I don't know. Am I crazy that like the Big Ten seems like they're getting affected by it?
No, the only thing I don't really like about this first week of the college football playoff format is that it has this Big Ten feel to it. Since the Tennessee game's at Ohio State and then you have Notre Dame, it has a Big Ten feel to it.
And Penn State's at home too.
Yeah, that's the only knock I have on it. I don't know why that had to happen, but it just speaks to what you said so many times about how it seems like Greg Sankey's getting outdone by whoever's in charge of television contracts every second he turns around.
Oh, he is. He got played by the Big Ten. Now I'll say this. Can we just throw this part out there though? It's the Big Ten feel is kind of nice right around Christmas because that cold weather, like you get it. We all love a Christmas story, right? That cold weather or Christmas story vibe. You feel like America's heartland. I mean, I kind of get it. That specific time of the year, it's like it's actually great. It's actually a great vibe. But you are right. Like, let's be honest. I've talked to you guys about this at length. I've talked about how Ohio State, I think, had a better resume than Tennessee. But if Greg Sankey was to get any benefit from the cheap contract he accepted from ESPN, it should have been at least Tennessee getting preferential treatment in a matchup like this, and that didn't happen. But again, I'm thinking, I don't know what you think. Given the morale of Ohio State, there's a chance being on the road could help Tennessee because again, if things go bad early in this game, Dave, I mean, let's talk about this. We talk about the cold weather. It's a lot harder to stage a comeback in football in cold weather, isn't it? You get behind, your morale gets low. The cold starts to beat down on you just a little bit more.
I don't know. They did it in Notre Dame back in 91, wasn't it?
They did. Yeah, they did do it in Notre Dame. But remember how that happened. There was a blocked field goal that they ran back for a touchdown that kind of – was it as cold then? It wasn't 17 degrees, I don't think, the way it is right now.
It's pretty cold. I could text Mike Stoll and ask him.
I mean, yeah, it happens. I just think it's harder. I mean, think about you when you watch the NFL playoffs. You ever see big comebacks in the cold weather in the playoffs? No, they're usually in the dome games, aren't they?
Yeah, usually. But are you saying we're going to have less exciting games because they're at home field sites? Is that what you're?
I'm saying they're going to be more defensive oriented, so it's going to be harder to come back if things go bad early. And if things go bad early, those Ohio State fans who are already unhappy about Ryan Day, the cold weather is going to get to them. Have you ever, guys? I'm just going to ask you guys this on a, and this is a proven thing. Medical science proves it. Okay, when you have anxiety of any kind, when you have when you feel any sort of demoralization,
you go sell your television rights for way too little.
Well, yeah, there's that. The cold weather actually magnifies it and exacerbates it. So if you ever, yeah. And so the minute things go just a little bit wrong for Ohio State, and the players are going to get anxiety, and the fans are going to feel demoralized.
You are so Dr. Calhoun into this.
I am. Things will melt down just enough where Ohio State, I'm telling you guys this right now, they can't afford to have a bad start in this game.
Now, I will give you this. One of the ways that I think Tennessee could be undermined by the weather is there wasn't much of an issue with fumbles, but Dylan Sampson had 3 consecutive fumbles, and that could cause for a looser handle. And those Buckeye defenders are well aware of that.
I think that it's harder. What's harder, they're holding on to the ball or wrapping up and tackling in the cold?
Probably holding on the ball. Brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. This coming out being reported by the News Sentinel. Ohio State's athletic director told Buckeye fans not to sell their college football tickets to rabid Vols fans. Now, StubHub is reporting that it's selling more tickets to Tennessee fans than to the Ohio State crowd. It's at about 42% is what I'd seen, as opposed to about 24%. I'm sorry. We've got that.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day.
Okay,
with the, and it got even better because look, Ohio State, as I said this yesterday, Dave, they're embarrassing themselves because not only did he come out and say that, which you don't do, but then then yesterday or 2 days ago, Ohio State's director of campus police came out and said, we have a plan in case Tennessee fans try to tear down the goalpost. I'm like, it was a joke. It was a troll. And you guys now have legitimized it by saying you have a plan in case Tennessee, they're obviously not actually going to tear down the goalpost. Okay.
Classic if they did. All right. This day in Tennessee sports history. What do you got, Caleb?
On this day in Tennessee sports history, back in 1971, so we're talking 53 years ago, Tennessee beat Arkansas 14-13 in the Liberty Bowl. It was actually one of the most thrilling games, but incredibly controversial. A game there were 2 calls by an SEC official named Preston Watts. And in case you guys don't remember, Arkansas was not in the SEC at the time. An Arkansas field goal was wiped out due to a phantom holding call, according to Arkansas fans. And then there was a play where Arkansas fumbled late in the game, and the Razorbacks recovered, but the refs ruled that Tennessee recovered the fumble, and Tennessee won the game 14-13. So probably Tennessee's most controversial win of all time, the 71 Liberty Bowl. They finished that year 10-2, ranked number 9. It was Philip Fulmer's senior year.
There's nothing that screams great football like the Liberty Bowl. Stay tuned. 2 minutes. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Coming up, Olie Lane will join us, former ball, talk some O-line and playing in the cold and Nico's leadership in these type of situations and more with Olie Lane. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, BanksJones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
So as we're talking, Jarrett Garantano follows me on the Twitter. So I'll follow him back and I say, hey, thanks for the follow. And can we get you on the show sometime? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. So we're going to have him on at some point. But I always wonder, though, when somebody that I cover listens, because sometimes you talk and you give an opinion and you don't really think of who might be listening. So he said he saw a clip of what I said and he said grateful. So I guess I said something good. Oh, you muted Mike.
Rookie mistake.
Wow, there.
Yeah, we were. It was a great conversation we had with Jacob Ward on Monday about him, and we were all defending him. And I think you and I both agreed, Dave, that whatever his issues were, we put a lot more of the blame on the incompetent coaching staffs at the time, right? More than
Amen. Amen to that. Amen to that. The Hemp House, a premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. All right, Caleb, we've got the stat of the day.
Yes, we do actually. The other night, interestingly enough, you're going to find this really intriguing, Dave. 3 players when Tennessee beat Western Carolina had 4 or more steals in the game. Jordan Gainey had 5, Jemai Mashack had 5, and Chaz Lanier had 4. The last time Tennessee had 3 players with 4+ steals in a game was way back in 2007 in a win over North Carolina A&T when Chris Lofton had 5, Tyler Smith had 4, and Josh Tabb had 4. That's a throwback of a name.
All right. There's some history for you, as we'll also have a little bit of history of 4 downs brought to you by Double D Piping.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Caleb, you asked me this morning, you said this is Tennessee's biggest game since when? And I said pretty easy, 2001 SEC championship game. If they beat LSU in that game, which they should have done because LSU was without its starting running back and tailback for the second half and essentially relied on draw plays, then Tennessee would have played Miami in the Rose Bowl, likely been around an 8 to 10 point underdog, maybe even 12 to 13. Caleb probably wouldn't have won that game, but you never know when you're playing for 2 championships within 4 years. That's pretty heady stuff.
Oh, I agree. And it's, it's interesting you say that because where this one feels totally different, and we're going to compare the biggest games Tennessee's played in, including that one in recent years. But I feel like the difference is Tennessee is actually excited to play this game, whereas in the 2001 SEC title, fans were just hoping to get past that game to go to the Rose Bowl. They didn't really appreciate the fact that they were playing for an SEC title, did they?
Yeah, and you know what Peyton Manning said about that?
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Thank you. Cooper, what should we do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
What down, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
All right, the biggest games that Tennessee's played in recently, you go just real recently, 2022, Georgia, at Georgia, a win there, and Tennessee has ascended even quicker than they have under Josh Heupel by beating Georgia, but I think still there's a little bit of a ground to overtake before you beat Georgia on a regular basis.
Yeah, the reason that one was so big was that, I mean, for those, that was before the Columbia collapse. And Tennessee had beaten Alabama earlier in the year. Tennessee was number one in the college football playoff. It was a top 5 matchup in November between 2 undefeated teams. Tennessee hadn't been in a game of that magnitude in over 20 years at that point. And it was, I mean, it had everything going for it until kickoff, when it became very clear that Georgia was significantly the better team.
Yep.
Honestly,
especially on, I thought that their corners and receivers won battles that I didn't think they necessarily would this deep into Heupel's career. All right, what down is next, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
I went a little ad nauseum into the 2001 SEC title game, but I still think that's the most significant loss in financially and impactful in Tennessee sports history.
Yes, it is. And you know what's funny is because I talked about, Tennessee was 3 years removed from winning the national title and back-to-back SEC titles. I think what hurts worse is they didn't take that SEC title game seriously and the opportunity, and then in later years, it wasn't about winning a national title, but they realized that they had an SEC title drought on, and that SEC title drought wouldn't seem as big if they had actually taken that 2001 game seriously. It's because they.
Well, I don't think that anybody didn't take the 2001 game seriously.
Dave, you're the one who told me they were handing out orange roses after they beat.
They were. I wasn't.
This was just. But it was LSU. I think they're not the LSU you know now, not the Nick Saban you know now. This was an 8-3 LSU team, and it's just, and I hear a lot of, and we were about to get to the other game that had this type of magnitude, but you hear about the hangover effect from the previous week's game. But Dave, the reason I never buy that is, Steve Spurrier in Florida always had to play Florida State before the SEC title in the 90s. They didn't have a hangover when they went to the SEC title game after playing that game.
No. Totally agree. All right. What down is next there, young Cooper?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
By the way, did you see where somebody posted on the YouTube channel said you just love watching Dave interview Cooper because he's like a proud father? I'm not. 2001 at Florida. That was a pretty monstrous one, but I'd still have to give the SEC title game, which was the next week, the advantage.
Yeah, the 2001 Florida one. I'm actually gonna break from you on this. I think 2001 Florida was a little bit bigger. Now 2001 SEC title was bigger than any game that Tennessee's played in since this upcoming game on Saturday, or Georgia 2022. But again, heading into the 2001 SEC title game, not during the game, but heading into the game, it didn't seem like a big game because everybody just felt like Tennessee was going to win, right? No one took LSU seriously. Whereas Florida, it was a matchup of 2 top 5 teams and playing to be number 2 and go to the Rose Bowl. And I think, and to go play for the SEC title. And I think for Tennessee fans, there was a lot of fight because people were so angry at that line. I mean, I still can't understand how Vegas set the line at 18 in that game. Worst line in college football history.
No, it was high, but I still would have had it around 13 or 14. You?
Really? I would have had it around 4. I would have had Florida by 4. Florida beat Tennessee by 4 the year before. The previous 3 games had all been within 1 score. Now, I think what people saw, you remember that was, it's funny to say it now, but Rex Grossman statistically had by far 2001 the best year of any Spurrier quarterback. And he was lighting it up, and he was the Heisman favorite. And Tennessee was, I think style points were hurting Tennessee because they were winning games 17-10, 24-14, things like that. And Florida was out here winning games 71-0. But I think it was just what people didn't realize. It was a total clash of styles. And I mean, I'll just never forget how the 2001 Florida game, Tennessee just manhandled Florida on the line of scrimmage on both sides.
Yep. All right. And this one obviously has to be bigger.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
The 98 national championship game is bigger, correct?
Correct. But the question is this the biggest game since the 98 national championship game? Or does 01 Florida, 01 LSU, or 22 Georgia, were any of those bigger than this game, upcoming game?
I will say 0-1 Florida because of the way that was played out and what happened in the wake of 9/11.
You'd say that was bigger going in than this one?
Yeah, it felt like the entire nation was tuned in, like, when it was the September game.
Yeah, and for our younger viewers, by the way, I know many people will be like, well, this one's a playoff game, but during that time, these regular season top 5 matchups late in the year were playoff games. It was the exact same atmosphere.
No, totally agree. And I think that Tennessee and what they're able to do Saturday will be largely determined on Nico, and as we've talked about, but it's got to be also his poise. And, he's been asked about the weather over and over. We talked about it a little bit, but it's going to be his poise and his leadership that's going to get Tennessee a victory from him if he's able to do that. What
you ready for the poll question I got up?
Yeah, lay it on me. And it's brought to you. Yeah, give it to me, and then I'm going to tell everybody it's brought to you by Double D Piping.
All right. Well, I'll tease the results. But Tennessee-Ohio State is the Vols' biggest game since 2022 at Georgia, 2001 SEC title, 2001 at Florida, 1998 national championship game. So I'll give you guys the results after
a message from Double D Piping.
Yes.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Caleb, give us that poll question.
All right, results are 2001 SEC championship leads at 45%, 98 national title second at 27%. So some people are saying this is the biggest game since the national title game. 2022 at Georgia, 24%, 2001 at Florida, 6%. I want to address something real quick. Some people are asking why I left 2007 and 2004 SEC title games off that list because Tennessee played for both of those. But the reason, Dave, and I want to know if you agree with me on this, that's not as big as that one because neither of those games had a national title on the line for Tennessee. They weren't going to play for the national title.
Correct.
They won those games.
I don't think anybody thought that Tennessee was a real national title contender at the time. Did you?
No. 2004, they had lost 2 games. One was to a bad Notre Dame team at home. And in 2007, they backed into the SEC title at 9-3 because they had an easy SEC West schedule. I wanted to ask about that 2001 LSU game. I never thought about this, but you've talked to me about game plan. I never thought about it, but you're the one who says all the time, game planning is way more important than play calling in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we know the reason Tennessee lost was because LSU had a backup quarterback come in and Tennessee hadn't prepared for how to face him. Knowing Nick Saban the way you know him, do you think Nick Saban actually did have a game plan in case his quarterback went down and he had to change up his strategy? Is that a Nick Saban thing?
Yeah, there's no question in my mind.
So that's the difference in the game. Nick Saban had planned in case his quarterback went down, but John Chavis did not plan.
Yes, it wasn't play calling. It was they weren't prepared to man that A gap in the week of preparation before because that's not what LSU had done a lot of. And that's all they did when they just kept running Matt mock draw, Matt mock draw, Matt mock draw.
And Nick Saban had prepared for the Matt mock draw, hadn't he? Just in case Rohan Davey went down.
Yeah. So. Just in case. It's all right there.
I feel like Nick Saban can cover details in game plans in one day that other coaches take like 6 weeks to figure out. Is he that level of smarter than other coaches?
Yeah, probably. If you're a coach, you're probably just fine with having him in the booth. Okay. Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. That's Commercial Bank. Bank on it. This season should be considered a success no matter what happens in Columbus on Saturday. Even if Ohio State blows Tennessee out 55-6, this season should be viewed as a success. This is taking a team that 4 years ago couldn't bumble out of its own way and get them into a college football playoff with a quarterback who looks to have an incredible future. And yes, I think this season is a success no matter what happens in Columbus. Now, I'll probably have a different take if they make the college football playoffs 4 straight times and don't advance, Caleb. But right now, yes, it's a success.
And I totally disagree with you.
Ouch.
This is the guy who you're looking at, the man right here, this guy right here, who spent 3 years telling you guys 2024 is the magic year for Tennessee to go win the national title. I've been saying that. Me. I said that the minute Dave hired me, guys, And we kind of had a slow transition. I was kind of partially working for him, and then I was part-time, and I'm full-time. So like, it was like, but from the first moment he hired me as like just a partial guest helper, I said, and it was the start of the 2022 season, I said, this season, I didn't think they'd go 10-2, but I said, this season is the season for Tennessee to make a splash and maybe start 5-0. And then I said, if you look at the recruiting and the trajectory, they're building the program to go win the national title in 2024. I said before the start of the 2022 season that 2024 was the year they'd win it all. And I stuck by that. Tennessee disappointed me this year to a certain degree because the offense was not what I thought it would be with Nico Iamaleava. It's gotten better, though, and the defensive line is way better than I thought it would be. I think it's all coming together, so I am still sticking with I picked them to win the national title. I'm not backing off. They're my pick to win the national title in the college football playoff. I'm also going to say this. If they don't win the national title, I won't consider it a failure. But if you can't get out of the first round of an expanded 12-team playoff, yeah, it's a failure. I'm sorry. This is not your 14 college football playoff. This is not the old Dave, it was tougher to go make it to the old BCS, to not national title game, to go play in a BCS bowl game than it is to make this college football playoff.
Okay, so here's our poll question now. Success this year means already a success. Top 8. Sorry, it says FOP 8. 4, Natty. Do you want to fix that for me and clean that up a little bit?
Yes, I do, because
that's exactly what that means.
If you change the vowel, it could mean something really bad.
Okay, let's don't do that. Go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. But I do think it's already a success. Now, I've also said if Nico doesn't get to a national championship game, I think that his career will be viewed quite harsher than otherwise. I mean, he's got to play for a national title at one point, right? For it to be a route success.
I agree. He's got to play for a national. You at least have to be talking about him. Like, put it this way, they have to at least make the top 4. Is that fair?
Yes.
So
what would you judge this as a success? If you're saying that Sweet 16, I mean,
well, Sweet 12 or whatever. I'm saying top 4. They got to go top 4. They got to beat Ohio State and Oregon. Sorry, that may be unfair, but Tennessee shouldn't have put themselves in this position by losing to Arkansas. And so it's, I mean, my expectations are my expectations. I'm not going to reset my expectations just because you dug yourself a hole, Tennessee, by losing to Arkansas when you shouldn't have lost that game. That's not how this works. That's, this is life. If you have expectations in life, Dave, and you have a setback that you shouldn't have had, well, you don't reset your expectations in life. You say, oh, well, I have to overcome this setback by doing something more difficult later, right? Isn't that how everything works?
Right. But I'll say this. Tennessee got the hardest draw of anybody.
But it's their fault.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have lost to Arkansas.
No, I agree. But they got an incredibly hard draw to go to Ohio State, then to potentially have to pick Oregon, then whoever's in the national championship game. I mean, you can't lay out a more difficult schedule.
Yeah. Would you have rather gone to Ohio State or Penn State, though?
I think you'd rather go to Penn State. As long
I
as
get
you're
your
of age. I wouldn't want to go up there any younger.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's, oh my gosh. Well, of age boys. Now, if you're an of age girl, you don't want to go to Michigan State, but or an underage girl, you don't want to go to Michigan State. If you're an underage boy, you don't want to go to Penn State. But I think the only reason I'd say Ohio State this time around, and I get it because Penn State chokes in big games all the time against top tier competition, but I do think Ohio State's. I know we had this debate the other day, Dave, but I'm having a hard time seeing the players rally around Ryan Day in this game on Saturday.
He's supposed to be a big, from people I talk to, he's supposed to be a big players coach guy.
But is he players coach guy in that he instills discipline and they want to rally around you, or is he a players coach guy and that they see him as their best friend and they just want to hang out with him afterward?
Probably more the latter. Success this year means already a success, top 8, top 4, natty. I like the way 1 in 5 of you think. You're saying natty already. Already a success, 46%, top 8, about 20%, top 4, about 15%. And you said, Caleb, that for this season to be a success, Tennessee would have to what?
They got to make the top 4. I'm sorry. They got to beat Ohio State and they got to win the Rose Bowl. Then I'll call it a success because, if they win the Rose Bowl, Dave, they will have won all 6 major bowl games that are affiliated with the college football playoff in the New Year's Six. That's the one bowl game they haven't won. They and Texas, Tennessee and Texas are the only two schools to have won 5 of the 6 bowl games that are the elite college football playoff games. Tennessee's won the Fiesta, they've won the Peach, they've won the Sugar, they've won the Orange, and they've won the Cotton all in the past, but they never won the Rose Bowl. And
Show represented by Banks and Jones, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Other attorneys say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll just go ahead and settle for less. Get what you want from Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksandjones.com. More in 2 minutes with Olie Lane, former Vols. Join us with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. And Caleb, as we continue kind of along this vein, what are some more of your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that, look, I'm not saying Josh Heupel's on the hot seat if Tennessee doesn't win on Saturday, guys. Put it this way. There's a difference, and I think you can agree with me on this, Dave, right? There's a difference between a season's a failure or not a success, and it's worthy of putting a coach on the hot seat. Because I will tell you this, if Tennessee did not make the playoffs or finish 9-3, I'd start raising some red flags on Josh Heupel. And
if they hadn't finished 9-3 with their schedule, I would have raised red flags as well.
Yeah. So, and they came close. Those Alabama and Florida games, they came very close. So, I mean, I'm raising... So I'm not putting him on the hot seat for losing to Ohio State, but I am saying that, look, this team had way too much talent. Dave, let's just go back to the start of the year. What we all blamed Joe Milton for last year's issues, right? And his woes. If I had told you at the start of the year that Tennessee's defensive line would be the best defensive line in the SEC and their secondary would be actually would be in the top quarter of SEC secondaries, you would have said, oh, that's easy. They're going 11-1 or 12-0, right? You would have said that they'll play Georgia close and they'll win every other game. You would have written that off, right?
Right.
That didn't happen because the offense didn't turn out to be what we thought it would be, and Josh Heupel's an offensive mind. I mean, this would be like if peak Alabama under Nick Saban had the best offense, but they still failed to win a natty because their defense was so bad. That would never happen under Nick Saban.
Do you think Josh Heupel will have another year like he had in 2022 where the offense is just lights out, just incredible? Is this just a year where you kind of go back and forth a little bit as you find your way? I mean, he surely wants to score 50 points a game. That's his DNA.
Yes, I agree. I think the college football playoff will tell us more about this, but I think he's on track to do that with the way he ended this season and the offense got better with Nico. I think next year, and this is why I said, even though the season's a failure, I'm not raising red flags on Heupel. I think next year it will look more like 2022. I thought it was going to look like it this year. I was wrong. There were some issues with Nico. There were some issues at the one big concern, and they did pick up a big transfer, Dave, yesterday in Wendell Moe, but they still got a lot of work to do on the offensive line. And you had a buddy, right, tell you that the issue is going to be when these offensive linemen are gone, isn't it? And that's the big concern.
Yep. And I think when you look at guys, they like Larry Johnson a lot. I'm wondering why Shamarad Umarov hasn't played more. You've got some other guys that we just saw the young man transfer, Bison Lang. They haven't developed players as well as they need to on the offensive line. That's just a fact.
Yeah. And I mean, William Satterwhite's in line to start at center next year, right?
And I think he's going to be very good, for the record.
Okay. So there's William, and then you're right, Shamrod Umarov, Max Anderson, Gage Ginther. I mean, these are guys that they've gone after, and I don't know. That's the big concern for Tennessee going forward. They haven't been able to restock their line, and we're going on to year 5. And look, they just added Wendell Moe, the transfer from Arizona, who's going to replace Javonte Spraggins like that. He's going to fill in for Spraggins and start right there. Andre Carrick might come back. Dave, if they get a transfer center, then next year, Josh Heupel could be in his 5th year at Tennessee and have never started an offensive lineman that he signed out of high school through 5 years. Have you ever known a coach do that?
No. There might have been a Jackie Sherrill back in the day because Mississippi State had to do so much in JUCO recruiting. That's all I can possibly think of, and I doubt.
Remember that little notepad Jackie Sherrill would have? He would just write little things down on his notepad. I'm like, what are you writing on your notepad?
Such a weird dude. And I told you about the boot story, right?
Yeah.
I asked him about his rattlesnakes, and that's all he want to talk about. Offense, defense, special teams, stick it. We're talking about my snakeskin.
I think he liked generating some headlines with things beyond football. He would have this little notepad and write something down every time a play happened. And I'm like, I don't think you're writing anything down. He reminded me of those people that that fake read a newspaper when you're hanging out somewhere. They're pretending to like, oh, I gotta keep up on the news, and it's like, no, you're not. You're just.
Why don't you just read the newspaper? It's not that hard to read.
Well, they always pick like they always wait until a bunch of people are around to read it because they want everybody to see them. I think that's why Jackie Sherrill had the notepad. He wanted people to think, oh, he's so smart. He's jotting down details of every play. And it's like, no, he's not. He's just trying to look smart on the sideline.
He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Hit that like button, subscribe, and make sure you got your notifications on. Stay tuned. More after this in 2 minutes with Olie Lane. The show represented by Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vols collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team that gets the job done. It's Ford commercial truck season at Varner Ford in Clinton, where our strong lineup is built for power and performance. Step up your game in this new 24 F-150 4x4 Super Crew, $46,997. At 250 Cargo Van, $50,950. 24 Ford Maverick XLT Hybrid, $28,929.
Local you trust, performance you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome back to the program. We've got a big announcement here next week. We're excited about a new sponsor that's going to be on board, and might have me roaming around in a new set of wheels. So we'll talk about that. Looking forward to that. Want to thank all of our fine advertisers for being a part of the program. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. And I'm trying to find just anything to talk about right now because I forgot to send Olie Lane his link. So say something insightful there, Caleb.
Well, Jimmy Stack says, I heard Amy, the owner of the Titans, wants Nico for her new stadium. Jimmy, there's a giant flaw in that. If Nico wants to go to the Titans, he should have gone out this year because he struggled. Because if he plays really well next year, the Titans management is so dumb. They're going to be like, well, we can't draft a good quarterback, guys. That's kind of our rule. So, we have to draft Will Levis in the next future of the program. So if Nico wants to go to the Titans, he should sit out next year. And then this is all they have to go on is this past year where he struggled. And then Amy Adams Strunk and Rand Carthon are so stupid. They'll be like, oh, this mediocre Nico is going to be a very good quarterback. Let's see what Mel Kiper has to say on the subject, because we're talking about the franchise that thought Will Levis was better than Hendon Hooker.
Will Levis is a superstar. I'll just go ahead and tell you that.
They've already benched him. Did you see they're benching him for this week? They're starting Mason Rudolph. And Mason Rudolph's not great. He's just like not as bad as Will Levis. And Brian Callahan, the coach of the Titans, they hired him to fix Will Levis, and he's finally thrown up the towel, basically saying, you know what? I can't fix this guy. Like, no matter how hard you try, Will Levis is good for 2 bad turnovers a game, and he had 4 on Saturday. Yep. And Dave, can I just say something about this? Just not this, but on a broader sense. As someone who's covered college football a long time, how frustrated do you get by NFL GMs valuing potential over just the game tape of how they played in college? Isn't game tape more important?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, but that's not every coach believes they can bring the best out of a player. That's why coaches get so enamored with a guy who has a lot of physical tools, like Joe Milton, for instance. But let's bring Olie Lane in here. He is brought to you by our friends at Peak IV Hydration. Peak IV Hydration, you can check them out in Sevierville and South Knoxville. They are fantastic. Peak IV Hydration, South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. You can order online. Those patches are awesome. How are you, Olie Lane?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
I'm well. I know that football is a rough sport, but is there part of you that wishes you were taking part in this game on Saturday?
Yeah, definitely. Just for the excitement and what special opportunity this kind of game is for playoff opportunities. My goal was, obviously didn't reach it, but I wanted to put banners up and I wanted to win championships and stuff. Didn't get to have those opportunities on the big stage like they got this weekend. So, part of me wishes I'm out there. Part of me also is very grateful that I can not be sore every single day and feel pretty good every time I get out of bed now. So
there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
So Olie, we're speaking about being sore and taking a beating. We've been talking about the physical play.
Where are you going with this, Caleb? Kind of leery, yes, we're going like this. Yeah, see.
Well, nothing gets you sore like Hooker. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It was too perfect. It was right there. Going into this game, I think we agree that Tennessee's offensive tackles have played significantly better over the past month and a half than they did in the middle of the season. I also think they haven't been as tested as they were in the middle of the season. And Ohio State has some very, very good edge rushers. Do you think what's more likely to you, that Tennessee's tackles have improved, so things should be better, or that Ohio State will expose some of the underlying issues that were there during the middle of the season because they're so much better?
Yeah, no, I think when I look at this tackle position, I think it truly is they've improved throughout the season. They still win against some tough opponents near the end. Having Georgia later this year and stuff like that, they had some good tests. And, they've got a good rotation figured out now, I think, with throwing Dane Davis in there consistently to kind of give some guys some breathers there in and out of the game. I think it's very important to note that the improvement is real. They've gotten better throughout the year. And that's what every team does. They get better from day one to day whatever this is in the season. They continuously work hard. And I know John Campbell especially and Dane Davis, the older guys in that tackle position, they've done a really good job of just setting the standard of where they needed to be from where they were to start the year and in the middle of the year. And I've seen them make strides and make improvements, working hard to change some of their techniques that they were doing to put themselves in more successful positions. I think part of some of the issues that it might have been with John this year is just getting more and more used to that right tackle position, getting more comfortable into doing those things on that side, because he's been a left tackle for majority of his career. But I think as the years progressed, he's gotten a better feel for what that position fully entails. Then again, Lance himself has improved a lot over the year. He didn't get a lot of playing time when he was with LSU. So I think this is truly his first real year of college football. And you can see starting out of the year wasn't where you wanted it, but he's continued to improve throughout the year. And I'm really impressed with where he's going. I've said it before on here. He gives me flashes of what Darnell Wright was at the end of his career. And I think eventually he's going to get to a position like that to be as successful as Darnell was and have opportunities in the next level.
Whoa, you just said John Campbell could be Darnell?
No, I'm talking about Lance Hurd. I think.
Oh, Lance Hurd. Sorry, Lance Hurd.
Yeah.
But still, Lance Hurd could be Darnell Wright. That's a gigantic standard.
if you look at Darnell's career, I mean, it wasn't always top 10 draft pick when he first started. I mean, there was a lot of growing pains with him. But I mean, his end result was an amazing product. So I mean, I think we could see the same thing happen with Lance Hurd as well. Especially in the offensive line position, when you play offensive line in the SEC, it's going to take a while to get everything nailed down, what you want to do and what you want to accomplish every single game. It's a hard position anywhere in college football, but I mean, in the SEC, it only gets harder because you're going against the top talent every single year.
Yeah, Ollie, when I ask you this as well, I think when I look at Tennessee's offensive tackles, they have played better, but I feel like that maybe we should restate the fact that Lance Hurd did have a significant ankle injury to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Big guys, those are tough to overcome.
Yeah, because I mean, the fact is, once you've turned an ankle, it's more preferable to turn it again. You know, people always say it's better to break your ankle than it is to sprain it. Because when you break it, it can repair back faster and stronger than it was when you sprain it. You're just loosening and weakening those ligaments, and they just never really get firm back when you're continually to push through it. So, I mean, it's hard, and especially with how they use their tackles, they want them on the move. They want them moving around. It's going to take a wear on you, especially when you get later into games, and that soreness starts to really dial up on you a little bit. But, you know, and I think I'm glad you highlighted that, because, I mean, I think that adds some reasoning of why he wasn't as on point as he has been later in the season. I think they found opportunities, just got to give him some breaks, use those bye weeks well to get him in the training room and healed up. I mean, now you've had a couple weeks to just really get everybody back to full health for this big game coming up.
How crucial, Ollie, is, you know, we always hear about when you think of blocking, you think pass blocking for the tackles and you think run blocking for the guards. And I think that's even more accentuated in Heupel's offense because almost all the running plays are just vertical A gaps, right? Like there's not a lot of stretch running plays. How crucial, though, what are some of the things the tackles have to do to make sure the run game is successful for Josh Heupel's system?
Yeah, I mean, especially the big emphasis for us in the run game for our tackles is especially on backside, making sure that you're getting your backside cut off. You don't want to have run downs from the backside coming in and knife it inside. They play a really big part in all of our combos, especially on our counter plays. They're the ones that really initiate the double team and decide, or they're the deciding factor on who's climbing up to a linebacker and who's staying. And then, I mean, you've seen them evolve a lot of this A-gap running into still tackle pulls. Majority of the time when we face defenses like those 3-3 stars and stuff like that, they're going to pull the tackles a lot because it creates better running lanes. And, I mean, with us having athletic tackles for the most part, getting them out in space is what some of them are really good at and best for them to do. And, you know, at the end of the day, when they only play 3 defensive linemen at a time, it's not ideal to just leave your tackle backside blocking air. You might as well go ahead and bring him into the fold on the front side and pull around for you.
So, okay, so they do have a significant role. Has that been, would you say that even when the pass blocking was not there during the year, did it seem like the run blocking was always there from the tackles?
Yeah, and I mean, I've always looked at it in this perspective. You know, run blocking is hardest at guard, easiest at tackle because you're dealing with a little bit smaller bodies. But, I mean, you could see the impact that they've had in the run game. Our run game's been solid, and it takes all 5 working together to have a successful run game. I mean, you could say there's more emphasis, obviously, on the interior 3 that get that started. But, I mean, it takes a combined unit to get the amount of yards that they're getting to give Dylan Sampson the year that he's had. You know, it takes everybody working as one. And it's a lot of coach speak, but I mean, it's true, especially when looking at just the offensive line. You need a unique, united 5 to really get things done that you want to. And I mean, it spreads into the passing game as well. Because I mean, everybody's got to work with everybody. Make sure your eyes are in the right spot, reading the right things. Everybody's pushing out or coming back in. You got to have everybody dialed in together. You can't have just, you can point out where the important parts are on a play, but I mean, if all 5 are not doing their job on a certain play, it only takes one, and that play is a blown play.
So I'm going to ask you a fun question since we talked about playing on a sprained ankle. What's harder, playing on a sprained ankle? What would you rather do? Put it this way: play on a sprained ankle, or be a tackle blocking for the Bears right now, depending whether it's Justin Fields or Caleb Williams playing quarterback?
Oh man, that's a pretty interesting question. I don't know. I feel like I'd I mean, you'd probably make more money playing for the Bears right now than playing on a sprained ankle.
Well, okay, which job is harder? Which job is harder? Okay. Say you're Darnell Wright. Say you're Darnell Wright.
Yeah.
Would you rather, if you're Darnell Wright going into this Sunday, would you rather have a sprained ankle or block for a different team?
I don't know. I mean, I'd probably rather play on a sprained ankle, I guess. To an extent.
That's such
I mean,
a shot at
least,
Caleb Williams.
But I don't know. There's a lot of what ifs in different directions, but
Cooper said something recently on the Vol Report with Cooper Mays, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee, cityheatandair.com. He said, you just really love blocking for Dylan Sampson.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not to say that when somebody else is back there, it's like, I hate blocking for this guy. You always want to do your best.
Yeah.
But what is it about blocking for him in particular that is enjoyable to an offensive lineman?
Yeah, because I mean, it's just his character and his personality, and the man that Dylan Sampson is just an incredible person. And I mean, you want to see him succeed. He's a guy that comes in with the same energy every single day, does his part in motivating everybody. If a juice level's low, he's the one that's bringing the juice up, getting everybody excited, making sure that they're focused in. He's become a true leader on that team, and when you got a leader, especially at running back, he's there to help the linemen as well. I mean, I'm sure he's helping them out and like telling them what he needs, the linemen telling them what they need from him. And, you know, it's always special when you got a back that's just going to run and hit the hole that you create for him. You know, there's a lot of times, especially in how the game is today, there's some backs that want to bounce around, try to find the perfect spot. But I mean, it takes a real dedicated and true back to just say, all right, this is the hole that it's designed for. I know this is what my offensive line's created. I'm hitting it full speed no matter what. And I mean, that takes it to a next level of what a run game can be. And I mean, then again, just at the end of the day, Dylan Sampson's he's a great human being. He does it right every single time. Everything that he does it right. And it reflects onto other people. And so, I mean, when they say they love blocking for him, it's because they love blocking for him, but they truly just love the man that he is.
So, Olie, expounding on that, you know, Dylan Sampson runs really hard. There's obviously two types of running backs. There are running backs that they embrace contact and they run hard right into it. And then there's running backs that'll run out of bounds because they're protecting themselves. As an offensive lineman who, you know, you guys are taking a beating every day to help pave the way for these guys, I'm not saying you try harder or less hard, but does it make you feel more wanting to block hard for a running back that's at least willing to try to take the same beating y'all are taking?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I want to see our backs go in and throw their body around with reckless abandon, and especially like doesn't get highlighted as much. But I love watching a film when we see linebacker blitz and then we can catch a linebacker or our running back just lays them out. Those are like some of the best things because they're throwing themselves out there to protect the quarterback, the same that you're doing every single play. And then, I mean, when they go out there and they are striving for the extra yards, the extra efforts, the pad +2. You know, that it really benefits the offensive lineman because that's less time you got to be out on the field because you're gaining more yards. It looks better on us because the more rushing yards we get, that's a direct reflection of how good the offensive line's playing. So, I mean, it does add an extra layer of wanting to push harder, I guess, for a sense when you know you've got a back there that's going to drain every single yard that he can out of a play.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of could agree with you on that. I want to change the subject a little bit because we talked about this on Monday, but, you know, last week, guy you played with for a while, Jerry Garantano reached out to Vol Nation and talked about how he wants to reach out. You committed in 2018 to Jeremy Pruitt first year. We asked Jacob Warren about this, so I kind of want to ask you since you were a teammate too. I said Vol Nation should welcome him back with open arms because I said that he was dealing with way more than people realize when he was at Tennessee. What are your thoughts on everything he was dealing with as the quarterback during that time period?
Yeah, I mean, when I look back at my time that I got to play with JG, I mean, it was always a hard road for him because, I mean, as a quarterback, you're the highlight position. And when a team's struggling like we did, that's the position that gets highlighted the most. There was a lot of different factors that I've talked about before with that staff that made things look a lot worse and highlighted things in a negative way. But I mean, you know, I think JG should be welcomed in open arms. He, at the end of the day, did give us everything that he got. Was there mistakes along the way and some bad plays and stuff. Yeah, but that's going to happen with anybody's career. Everybody's going to have mistakes. It's just a shame that his got highlighted in such a way because it generally was not a great scheme to be playing in. I mean, everybody on that team, when you look back, it was such a talented roster. To not have the success that we did end up not having. And then, I mean, for him, it was just a whirlwind because, I mean, there was multiple seasons that he was here that they were playing. They would roll through so many different quarterbacks throughout a year and never find a guy. And so it's just like he never had full 100% backing from everybody else. And, I mean, I'm sure, as you guys know, as an athlete or especially a quarterback, if you don't have that full confidence from the coaching staff that you're the guy that's going to go out there every single play, it's hard to really get a step and a grounding into what you're doing. Because, I mean, it was you're in for 2 series, and then we're bringing in Brian, and then we're bringing in JT, and then you're back in. So it's like you don't get a true footing. You don't really feel like you're the guy that actually won out there. And then when you feel like you're not the guy that actually went out there, I feel like it makes you more prone to more bigger mistakes because you're trying to press and make something big happen, so you solidify it to them like, yeah, I am the guy that can do this. But to your point, I think the Ball Nation should welcome him back. I'm sure he's got a lot of insights on what else went on and what happened through that time that he was here. And I mean, at the end of the day, he's gone on. He's had some time in the NFL. He's learned a lot about the game of football, and he'd be a good asset to just hear some thoughts on.
I agree. And Caleb, I'll say this too. I think all players should be treated kindly before NIL when they were money to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's one of my biggest beefs with the NIL is you've turned it into now there's a monetary value attached to these players, and especially with them coming out, the 10% raise on the tickets is for the NIL. Well, now you're just giving fans a direct line to say, well, I'm paying for this. I'm paying for the players that we have. So if we don't have a good year, you're almost in turn giving them a right to be able to say whatever they want to, just like NFL fans. Because, I mean, an NFL fan can get frustrated when we're paying $12 million for this guy and he's not any good. And so, I mean, now you're openly bringing that into college football. Now, granted, I think players should get paid. I think for how much money these programs make and just college football as a whole makes throughout a year, there's no reason the players should not get a piece of that. But that's just some of the things that open up that can of worms when you let those things into college football.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Caleb.
Sorry, I just wanted to add a comment on it, and it's funny you bring it with JG. You talk about instability in the scheme. I mean, the guy played for 4 offensive coordinators in his first 4 years at Tennessee, and the only time he had his offensive coordinator return was the COVID shortened season. And I think you can attest to there really wasn't a lot of time that year to really develop an offense, was there?
No, there wasn't, because I mean I think it was Vanderbilt was the first SEC school to close down, and it was like we just finished our first spring practice, which was just helmets. And then they call us in for a team meeting and say, hey, we're closing down campus. Everybody's going home. You can't come to the complex. And then, I mean, that lasted until right up until about fall camp started. And so, I mean, you only had about a month to get ready for a season that was then shortened to 10 SEC games, which every other conference is not the same as the SEC. And so when you're playing 10 games and that's your season against the hardest opponents in the conference, it's not a lot of fun. And then, I mean, you got games that got postponed. I mean, we ended up playing Florida in like December that year, super late. And it was just, I don't know, when I look back at it, I think they should have just they ended up even saying the year doesn't count. Everybody gets that year of eligibility back. I think it was a waste of time for us to play at the end of the day. And obviously it didn't look good because we only won 3 games that year. So it makes that team looks awful. When in turn, when you look at that roster again, that roster was talented. Those rosters under Pruitt staff were very talented rosters. Because, I mean, you see some of those guys in the league today making big plays like Trey and Jawan and Palmer, all of them, Alante Taylor. I mean, they're out there making plays in the league every single week. And so, I mean, that could have been really talented teams, but just like I said, the scheme and stuff just wasn't there. And I mean, the outside factors that 2020 season, just it was pointless to even try to play a season that year.
Agree with that. Anything else, Caleb?
Nope, I'm good.
Olie, fantastic stuff as always, buddy. We will talk to you next week. You got a score prediction for the game?
Yeah, I think I've been riding around somewhere 28-24, 31-28. I got us winning. I think we're going to have a really good fan showing from everything that I've seen on Twitter. They've got the path for the goalpost already from what I've seen. It will be cold, but I don't know how much the cold's going to affect us. I mean, we've played in cold temperatures before. And I mean, for Ohio State, they're not used to really playing night games. So, I mean, that might be a factor for them as well. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a very interesting game. I think it's the best game that's in this first round matchup for matchup, talent versus talent. And so it'll be exciting to see what takes place. But I always got to take my balls. So.
Yeah, I think Tennessee wins this game. We'll have our picks coming up a little bit later. But I find it interesting, and one of the things we were going to dig into with you, but we didn't have time, is just, do you think Tennessee is going to skew the way of going this 2 tight end set look, or do you think they'll more skew what they traditionally did with 3 receivers look?
I don't know. I mean, I think with the 2 tight end look, especially against some of these non-conference games, will put you ahead in some ways, just because you're putting more size against teams that generally don't have the size to match up against the SEC. So I think that's a benefit there that they could potentially look at to use. You know, I'm sure they're going to use some of their more traditional stuff as well, because it's a big game. You want to run what works for you in the past, but I think that's something that they should get into, because, like I said, the size difference is real between the conferences, and I believe that it will play a big part in this game.
Yep. Great stuff, Ollie. We will talk to you soon. Be well, sir.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate y'all. Have a good Christmas.
Thank you. You too. Merry Christmas. Olie Lane, nice enough to join us. His appearance brought to you in part by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. QualityTirePros.com. Also want to thank our great friends, Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. The Fire Opals are a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. Coming up on the program, should the Vols have the balanced attack or play conservative in the college football playoff? Well, Caleb has never said play conservative in anything, so I feel pretty certain which direction he's going to go. Stay tuned. The show represented by
Do you? Are you sure?
No, we'll see. The show represented by Banks and Jones, banksandjones.com. That is a heck of a teaser, Caleb Calhoun.
Yep. All right, 2 minutes.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
24 F-150 4x4 Super Crew, $46,997. 24 Ford Transit 250 cargo van, $50,950. 24 Ford Maverick XLT Hybrid, $28,929. Local you trust, power you can afford.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Double D Piping provides full service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Welcome back to the program with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. It's National Underdog Day, Caleb. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. National
Greatest underdog in sports history, probably Rudy with Notre Dame.
He didn't even. How was he an underdog? He didn't actually accomplish anything. The most ultimate participation trophy movie of all time.
Yeah, let's set a poll question. Who's the best underdog? And maybe people can give us some in the text, give us some suggestions. I think the best underdog that I ever covered was Travis Stevens. So he gets my nomination for being on the poll.
Okay, so we're going to talk about players as underdogs. Okay, I was thinking teams, but Travis Stevens is a good one as an underdog. I mean, nobody expected him to do what he was going to do. What about the 85 team, Daryl Dickey? Tony Robinson goes down with an injury, and Daryl Dickey has to finish the season.
That whole entire team with Powell running back, and they were pretty much underdogs across.
Chris White at safety. I mean, none of those guys were NFL guys that we're talking about.
Now, they had a little lull there in the 80s where their talent dipped, and then it got right back up in the 90s pretty quickly. I would read a book because I wasn't old enough to remember most of it, but I would read a book about Johnny Major's return to Tennessee.
Oh, I would too. That's a great one. Speaking of this is where, because the 85 and 98 teams are both totally different, but aren't they kind of similar in that they way exceeded expectations? But the 85 team exceeded expectations. They truly were better. They truly did play better than they actually were talent-wise. The 98 team, they were kind of underdogs, but it's not like those players weren't insanely talented, right? At the same time.
Work Trucks, all about trucks with an X. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Work Trucks, all about trucks. Trucks that are actually available. Trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. Then Work Trucks. You can choose your vehicle, cargo vans, utility body trucks, cranes, dump trucks, Work Trucks. No dealership run around. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. You can check out their inventory right there, Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Don't risk your business or your future on the wrong piece of equipment. Burns your time. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Downtown Birmingham and in Clinton Highway. So we got suggestions for our underdogs, top vol underdogs.
Top vol underdogs. Okay, let's do this. All right, I think I can just go straight with the list right here. I'll go with.
You're not even going to give our final listeners and viewers the opportunity to participate. You do it yourself.
Yeah, who is the top vol underdog? Because I got a few. So you named Travis Stevens. I love him. What about Chris Lofton?
Was
3-star, not wanted by Kentucky, way undersized, not fast.
Put him on the poll.
Chris Lofton.
You know what? I would have thought of him more as an underdog had the game not changed during his time at Tennessee. It went to more of a 3-point shooting.
I don't think the game changed until after him. That's the thing. I think the game changed partially because of him.
Okay. So we'll go with them. We got Lofton. We got Travis Stevens. Who else we got? Biggest underdog in Tennessee football or Tennessee sports history.
Chris Lofton, Travis Stevens. Should we stick with Daryl Dickey?
Yeah.
That guy was never supposed to be a starting quarterback in college football. And he became one.
Why could you not go Bill Bates, though?
You go Bill Bates. I'm fine. Bill Bates or Tony Thompson?
Bill Bates.
Okay.
I mean, they created a position for Bill Bates to make the Pro Bowl.
This is just a cowboy fandom in days.
No, it's not.
Didn't he get run over by Herschel Walker?
He got trucked by Herschel Walker. And they still play that before every Georgia game, every single time. And I wonder if he's
Will Brooks. Will Brooks. How did we forget Will Brooks?
See, it's going to get more difficult to determine these underdogs because I don't really know if Will Brooks is on scholarship or not. I mean, he's listed as a non-scholarship player, but surely he's not going to the bursar's office to pay his tuition.
here's the difference, though. Bill Bates was a Pro Bowl safety in the NFL. No one's ever going to mistake Will Brooks for a Pro Bowl safety in the NFL in the future.
Well, probably a lot of truth to that. All right, we'll have a college football playoff rooting interest. What's our poll question, Caleb?
The poll question is, who's the greatest of all underdog? And I got to address 2 names that have come up. Chris Lofton, Travis Stevens, Daryl Dickey, Bill Bates. Because people are saying the kids don't even know who T. Martin and Peerless Price are. Richie, all due respect, people are saying this. Those guys weren't underdogs. T. Martin was one of the most highly touted commitments Tennessee ever got at quarterback. A 5-star. I mean, look, there was people that were paying him to go to Tennessee, and Alabama was pissed at him for not staying in Alabama. And Peerless Price was not as highly touted as a receiver, but he was still a pretty highly touted receiver. He was an NFL receiver.
Peyton was overrated, wasn't he? Oops. Peyton was overrated, wasn't he? I was trying to set up a Peyton.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
No, he was rated the highest prospect in the country. I'm sure recruiting services didn't actually do recruiting nearly as much back then. All right. Should the Vols have a balanced attack or just play conservative in the college football playoff? I feel like I'm getting set up with this one, Caleb, because I feel so certain that you're going to go with aggressive as you tend to do. But I don't think that you're going to do that. I think you're going to throw me off.
Yeah, you're right. I'm going to throw you off.
Oh, my goodness.
So there's 2 types of conservative guys, by the way. And when I talk conservative, I talk win probabilities because I'm an analytics guy. So that's why I'm always for going for it on 4th down. But there's a difference in conservative between like not punting as much and conservative between like throwing versus running a lot. Is that fair to say, Dave?
Yes.
I think Tennessee should run in this game. I'm talking they should not put the ball in the air 20 times, and they should keep it on the ground 45 times at a minimum in this game.
I agree with that. And I guess we're supposed to have different hot takes, but I'm with you as well. I think that this offense needs to be very ground-based. They may pop a couple like they did against Vanderbilt. That'd be all well and good and everything. But that's, 50, 60, 70-yard plays aren't going to be the bread and butter. It's going to be the 4, 5, and 6-yard running plays.
Totally agree. And I think the thing that the Michigan game showed me is this. And I think you would agree with me on this, Dave, don't get down on yourself if you're just getting 3 yards in a cloud of dust every play and you're having to punt on 4th down and you're getting a lot of 3 and outs. That's fine if it's in the first half and you're keeping it close. Because I think, and this is where I'm sticking to my guns on this, I think Tennessee's deeper in the trenches than Ohio State is. So I think in the second half, Ohio State's defensive line is going to wear down before Tennessee's defensive line wears down. So if you can stick to the ground, I think by the 4th quarter, those 3-yard, 4-yard gains are going to turn into 9 and 10-yard gains.
We are always quick to jump on Josh Heupel when he calls too many of those tunnel screens or when he calls some plays we don't like. But I don't think we give him enough credit for what he did on the offensive line with the issues at tackle. And bringing in Dane Davis to spell those guys at tackle for just a few plays has really changed this entire football team. And you're talking about 2 offensive tackles in Campbell and Hurd that were both dealing with ankle injuries. And that's, as far as a nagging injury, that's one of the worst an offensive lineman can have.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Dane Davis seems to be to tackle what Olie Lane was to the interior line for Tennessee. We just had Olie Lane because wasn't Olie? He was a utility guy. Basically what they said was, Olie, we don't have this guy's hurt here. Can you fill in for the day? And he'd have to move around. And they've been asking Dane Davis to do that for a while. And you're right. He gets a ton of credit. And this is why. But he also gets a ton of credit, with the topic, Dave. The reason I believe he'll do it, Josh Heupel's shown he's willing to stay conservative. I don't think Josh Heupel. I want to know. You know a little bit more about his personality than I do. Do you think he has an instinct of wanting to score 70 points, or do you think he actually has an instinct of I will run it 45 times if I have to win a game?
I know for a fact that he has Tennessee Sports Information put out a lot of the stuff they put out, like about his offense. You can tell when he practically wrote one himself. And so I think he wants to score a lot of points, but I don't think he has to score a lot of points. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think Bill Belichick could have won without Randy Moss. He almost won it all with Randy Moss, but nobody would say Bill Belichick had to have Randy Moss to win, right?
No, nobody would have said that. And I'm of the mindset. It's funny because most of the time during the season when it's warm weather, things like that, I like seeing. I enjoy the offense. I like seeing teams score 70 points and Tennessee score 60, whatever. Isn't there something kind of appealing though about playing a conservative football game in the cold weather where you win 13-7, just running those old school. One of my favorite games, rivalries to watch back in the day, Dave, was when Ben Roethlisberger was there and it was Ray Lewis, the Ravens-Steelers rivalries, and they were always like 10-7 games. Those were like the most beautiful football games to watch, weren't they?
Yeah.
During that time?
I don't think you could go back and do that now, though. I think the rules have been changed so much in the passing game where you've got to.
So you don't think Tennessee could do that on Saturday? I think they really could.
I'm sorry. I thought you were referring to the NFL. No, I don't think you can't take football and move backwards. I think you can play a bit more conservatively, but you're still going to do a lot of RPOs because of the way they don't call down the blocking.
Yeah, although I think with the way the game has changed, and I think this is why Heupel's running it more, and you're seeing it in the NFL, teams have, and you brought this up, teams have adjusted so much to stop the pass that they're now too soft against the run. And
don't forget this too. I mean, what happened at Mississippi State when they had a rest in peace, Mike Leach. When they had to replace him, what did they do?
They went for defense and almost the anti-Mike Leach, weirdly enough.
Right. So I think that you're going to see a lot of teams go along those lines of how they build a program. I'm not saying they should hire Jeremy Pruitt, but I think you're going to see more teams that make those hires not be for this next hiring cycle. I don't think they're going to be as worried about the offensive wonderkins, like the Southern Cal coach and all that. I mean,
Lincoln Riley, who is like, have you seen the disaster at USC? They're losing everybody to the portal.
It's a fiasco.
And Josh Pate brought this up. Dave, funny enough, 15 years ago, if you were told that the college football would become the Wild West where you could just buy players with advertisers and things like that, wouldn't you think USC would have been the best positioned to dominate that era out in SoCal?
Actually, no, because I've been out there a couple of times and their athletes, there's no presence whatsoever. And I don't know how you could possibly put an athlete at Southern Cal that's nobody that anybody knows of, how you could put him in front of an athlete that is LeBron James or something. The space is so tight.
You don't think like Hollywood advertisers would see any value in the USC athletes because there's just because that's what I thought. I thought the sell of Hollywood, but I guess you're right. Like Hollywood's like, we got way bigger fish that we can prop out than college football athletes.
Well, Caleb, remember this too. Nashville's about as big as Hollywood now. I mean, it's got a lot of people are moving to Nashville. So I don't know.
Yeah, but it's not like that's helping Vanderbilt with NIL.
Oh, good.
So I mean, it's and Nashville's turning into. I mean, look, having been there, like the people moving to Nashville, they don't care about college football the way the people who are from Nashville, like or whose roots are in Nashville, do. There's a lot more. I mean, it's interesting. Like the greater Nashville is Vol country, but I feel like the actual city where like a lot of these, shall we say, like Yankees are moving to, I feel like there's more interest in the Titans than the Vols around that crew. Interestingly enough. So, I mean, it's weird how that plays out, but yeah, to your point, getting back to it, I think we're at a level where we might start seeing, do you think we're almost at a level where we're going to see offensive coordinators get hired, not based on how many points they're putting up, but how efficient their offense is? Or do you think people will still look at offensive coordinators based on whether or not they put up 50 points a game?
No, I can see what you said, how efficient, because I think the running game's coming back. We've already seen it in the NFL, and I think that's just the ebb and flow. So I think you're going to see the running game coming back. And when you've got Josh Heupel putting together a defense like he's putting together, he obviously sees that that's the way to win, right?
Yeah, and also that's how Josh Heupel won his national title. Is his defense was elite, and he did what he needed to do. So I think he has an appreciation for that. And look, there is something that's just beautiful about it. And Tennessee's got the defensive line that is really good. OSU's banged up on the offensive line. I think the hard thing for Josh Heupel, do you think he can do this? He's smelling blood in the first half because Ohio State, Tennessee's defensive line is keeping it close. And it's like a 3-3 game. And Heupel's smelling blood. Do you think he can avoid taking the shot that he really wants to take downfield?
I still think you need to take the shot. You need to take a couple of shots, 2 or 3 a half. Brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me, LASIK, no contact, no glasses. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Local vision correction done best.
The first step to better vision is to visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at CCTI.
All right, we'll get to college football rooting interest as it's the first weekend of the college football playoff ever, the 12-team version. It's only 8 more teams, but doesn't it sound so much more robust than 4 teams?
Maybe I wanted 8. I only wanted 8 teams. I don't like the 12-team playoff, though. You're talking to the Grinch who thinks that college football ruined the regular season for this expanded playoff. So it's 4 did still sound kind of off. I would have rather just had I think the 14 playoff. I think the BCS was better than the 14 playoff, but I think that I think 8 was the magic number. Either 8 or go back to the BCS. 4 and 12 is just annoying. Sorry to be the Grinch. But I mean, again, we get some December cold weather games that are like an NFL playoff atmosphere. So have fun with that, I guess. You ruin top 10 matchups in the regular season that no one's going to watch anymore because people know they're both going to the playoff. But congratulations, you get a nice little extra December game out of it that has tickets at $35. Did you know, Dave, that the Penn State SMU tickets are $35 right now?
Is that right?
Yes. Did you know that the ReliaQuest Bowl game between Alabama and Michigan is as expensive as Tennessee, Ohio State, and Texas Clemson?
Well, good bowl games.
I told you guys. I messed up. I underestimated how right I was, guys. The only time I've ever been wrong is when I'm wrong about how right I am. Exactly. And the truth is, I said college football playoff would be exciting in December, but it would devalue the regular season. Well, it turns out it's not even exciting in December because, if you're a fan of the team, that's fine, but people aren't caring to go to these games.
People are going to the games.
Dave, that's NCAA tournament basketball March Madness ticket prices right now, okay? So I'm sorry. You have $35 tickets. First of all, your ratings are going to be cannibalized by people watching some NFL playoff games on Saturday. And you sacrifice the entire regular season for this extra week of games that aren't even driving the ticket prices the way you want. Also,
I think they're doing it pretty good. I think, and at the end of the day, it's going to be about television ratings. It's not going to be about tickets sold. That's the gate. It's not the primary revenue driver.
But the only game that's going to be highly rated is tonight's game, Notre Dame SMU. They're competing with NFL games tomorrow.
Yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense. TristarHatsCo.com, TristarHatsCo.com.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TristarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TristarHatsCo.com. That's TristarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TristarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't to this point. We'll have Rick Terry's great 8 Garmin challenge coming up when we hit 8,000 subscribers. If we can put the Patreon group in there, you just be a member of Hooker's Corner, and you will be eligible for that prize, which this month is a John Henderson autographed mini helmet we'll give away and try to get it to you in time for Christmas, quite possibly. All right, Caleb Calhoun, college football playoff rooting interest. And we did this during the into the regular season because there were a lot of games to keep an eye on that could affect Tennessee. But it's pretty simple now, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's twofold actually, because it's not just teams you want to see win, but it's not as simple as you think. Because yes, you want to see the higher seeded teams win, but if you're thinking about going all the way to the national title game, there's a couple teams you might want to root for just to see them knock out some other teams in the next round. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. Explain.
So, okay. I'm first setting up a poll question. Outside of Tennessee, which CFP underdog are you rooting for most? So I'm putting in SMU, Indiana, and Clemson. So those are the three. I'm sorry?
Not Indiana.
Oh, yeah, because you just hate Indiana so much. Dave's hatred for Indiana is you know what, he's a Celtics fan, he's a Larry Bird fan, and he hates everybody from the state because they didn't put enough talent in, because Bobby Knight sent Larry Bird back to Indiana State. Is that why you hate Indiana, Dave?
No, but I'm not a big Bobby Knight fan. So what other games are we rooting for? You say just teams above them want to be viewed as?
Well, okay, so not necessarily, and I'm going to break down why. So SMU, Penn State, 11-6. Go ahead and root for SMU. The winner of that game is going to play Boise State in the next round. So that is the most you want. Go ahead and root for SMU to pull that upset. I think there's recruiting issue. There are actually recruiting factors with Penn State because, Dave, in this new era of college football, I don't think it's regional anymore. Just every blue blood's a recruiting rival, right? In college football now. And so
everybody with a wallet, as long as you got a wallet.
Yeah, exactly. And money in the wallet.
Yeah.
So root for SMU. Clemson and Texas, again, doesn't really matter. So if Tennessee were to get to the Final Four, they would play the winner between Arizona State and the Clemson-Texas winner. So that's a little more relevant to them. I think you're rooting for Clemson for multiple. See, this is where it's a little debatable because we talk about blue bloods, Dave. Clemson doesn't really belong, but I want to ask you, and this is where the debate comes in. Could it hurt Tennessee on a recruiting level if Clemson wins and proves that they're still relevant?
Yes.
Upsets tech. So you would. So are you rooting
for root against Clemson?
So you're rooting for Texas, even though they're the favorite?
Yes.
Okay. So for the sake of recruiting, I get it. Root for Clemson or root for Texas. But for the sake of just this playoff, I think if you're Tennessee, you want Texas out of the way, don't you? In terms of a threat to you. So which one are you taking? Eliminate the threat in this year's playoff or eliminate the threat in next year's recruiting?
I would probably talk recruiting since I think that has a longer impact. So I would, if I'm Tennessee, I would rather Texas win.
And there's no guarantee that you'll even get to play the winner of that game anyway. So,
right.
Yeah. Okay. So you go ahead and root for Texas. All right. You've convinced me. Here's the hot take, guys. Indiana, Notre Dame. You just brought up not Indiana. Dave, I agree with you. I say root for Notre Dame. Are you ready for why?
Why?
The biggest threat by far to Tennessee in the college football playoff, if Tennessee were to, the biggest threat to anybody is Georgia. They're the best team in the playoff, right?
Right. Not substantially better than previous years, but notice.
Yeah, but still the best. Georgia on any regular week would Drax Notre Dame. However, it's looking like Carson Beck's not going to play in that quarterfinal game. So the winner of Indiana and Notre Dame is going to get to face Gunnar Stockton. At that point, you start to think, oh, which one has the better chance of beating Georgia? Because there's a real chance one of them could beat Georgia at that point, right?
Sure.
And at that point, you got to root for Notre Dame. Because let's be honest, Dave, gun to your head, who's more likely to beat Georgia, Indiana or Notre Dame?
Probably Notre Dame.
Right? So, am I crazy to say root for Notre Dame so they could potentially knock out Georgia for you in the next round?
No, I mean, I think you'd want the underdogs to win for the most part, with the exception of the one we just had. I don't know. Caleb, I'm just glad that when this is over, we don't have the conversation about, well, their strength of schedule is this much tougher and this much harder and this much more difficult. And I'm just glad we don't have to have those conversations anymore.
Oh yeah, with the breaking it of a down. No, yeah, but that's the fun part. You brought this up. College football likes that. Half of college football's popularity is driving the debate over strength of schedule and formulas, isn't it?
Yes, I mean that's exactly. They've been doing this for 100 years.
If there was no controversy, the sport wouldn't sell as well. I mean, that's a huge. It's kind of like you know in wrestling, you know when they have the when they do the screwy finishes. Sometimes you know what I mean. It's like that's half the entertainment value of wrestling is the screwy finishes, and college football seems to embrace that. So just for the poll outside of Tennessee, which CFP underdog are you rooting for the most? SMU 34%, Indiana 41%, Clemson is 24%. Those are the leaders. That's the result so far. Based on what you and I are saying, Dave, though, it looks like we say Tennessee should root for 2 of the 3 favorites, Texas and Notre Dame.
Yep. I think you want Clemson to be right where they were, which was just outside looking in. Now they're in, looking around. You need to knock them out the door as fast as you can.
Is that the most important game to you between the 3, rooting for Texas over Clemson?
Well, I mean, unless
I'm talking the first round because Oregon and all them have buys and everything like that.
Right. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I can get down with that.
Interesting. I mean, I would, and that's even with Texas being in the SEC. But I think you kind of convinced me. I think you kind of have a point with that. Who do you think? So let's do this. SMU, Penn State. We've already talked about in the past how Tennessee's the most likely underdog in this weekend's slate of games. But if you had to pick another underdog that's most likely to win, SMU at Penn State, Indiana at Notre Dame, or Clemson at Texas, who would you think has the best chance?
SMU, and I don't care what the numbers are.
Why? Because is it that level of little faith in Penn State?
Well, I mean, I'm not even going to look at the numbers. I can just tell you I don't like James Franklin and big game coaches or big games as a coach.
But you like Marcus Satterfield against Indiana.
I like anybody else, basically, other than James Franklin as a big game coach. I mean, what's the one big game he's ever won?
He beat Ohio State in 2016 off a fluky blocked field goal return for a touchdown, something like that. It was weird. So that was probably the biggest one that he won. Penn State won the Big Ten that year, but was left out of the college football playoff. Ohio State still went in. I thought it was I thought that was the accurate move because Ohio State was the better team.
Are you surprised at all? You mentioned that people were still showing up from the Michigan-Alabama bowl game. You said earlier you thought bowl games would do just fine, but why? I didn't.
No, I thought they would struggle. I was shocked by it. I'm beyond shocked. Like I said, I was wrong about how right I was because I didn't think that – I thought that this new college football playoff, while I didn't like the sacrifices to the regular season that was coming, I thought the actual month, the 3 weeks that was taking place would be like the greatest 3 weeks of sports, the most exciting. Dave, I'm sorry, but I hate to be the bearer of the Grinch, but does it really feel like this is the first weekend of the 12-team college football playoff? Do you see the same excitement you even see from March Madness in basketball the first week?
But it's just the first week. I
But
think I think you'll see that.
Well, I don't know. It's weird. It just seems like I think people overlook something. You know what I think a lot of people overlook, Dave, is I think, and this is the honest truth with the playoff, I think they overlooked that you sandwich the first and the second round around Christmas and New Year's. People usually like a weekend to commit to themselves to focus on Christmas and the holidays and things like that.
It's very true.
And I think that this, if you're an Ohio State fan, or if you're any of the fans of the home teams, you got to choose between traveling to this home game or traveling to the bowl game the next week. But you're not going to do both because it's around the holidays.
No, I wonder too with fans how they've weighed it in their minds. Of Ohio State's a pretty special place. The Rose Bowl is really special. Ohio State though is drivable. It makes it a little less expensive, but tickets may be the same price. There are just a lot of families that made bowl trips in previous years that aren't going to be able to make 2 and 3 trips for playoffs.
Yeah, which is why the home crowds are not going to have the same home field advantage. I think a lot of people if you're an Ohio State fan, Columbus isn't special. You'd rather go to the Rose Bowl because you've already done Columbus. Now you've probably already done the Rose Bowl too, but that's a different story. If you're a Tennessee fan though, Columbus is special. You've never been, so yeah. It's my brother got tickets. He's thrilled. He's really excited to go to Columbus, and I would be too. It's there's something special about you as a person who has covered Tennessee. Wasn't there always something special about going to a place you haven't gone to before to cover them?
Oh yeah, definitely. No, definitely. I can remember being wowed at Auburn, how loud that stadium was when I didn't think it would be even close to the top of the list. I can remember going to Cal and seeing the hippie game there. And yeah, it's when you talk about the setting that they have right now, and you've got cars coming in before the sun came up in Notre Dame to bring in their party supplies, that to me feels like college football playoff time. And I think this is going to be a thing, and it's going to be football Friday, and boom, there you go. I love the fact that they're playing one game on the Friday night before too. So I'm excited. Always around.
That was the smartest thing they did.
Yep.
Was the Friday night game.
He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Other attorneys say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Not